Hey everybody, welcome back to Decks and Bytes. Today we are going to be talking about Battle of Talingchan. We are going to be unboxing CC-02, but we're not just going to be doing an unboxing. We're going to be doing a critical examination of how this annual set stands up against its predecessor, CC-01, and what CC-02 really offers to the different types of players. By the end of this video, you will have a clear sense of whether CC-02 is worth the investment, and depending if you're a collector, competitive player, or just someone getting started, if you should purchase this product or not. This is Battle of Talingchan's annual set. It looks to do two things. First, it looks to introduce new cards that can be added to new and existing players' decks, while reprinting some of the older cards that make them more readily available for newer players or players that may have played the game but didn't have access to the older cards. So now that we know what CC-02 is, as far as its goals, is to introduce new cards while reprinting old staples and offering alternate arts for the collectors, let's see how CC-02 really compares to CC-01. So looking back at CC-01, we can see a few things. First, there's a lot of cards that are currently being played depending on what deck archetype you pick. But not only that, there is a lot of chase cards that people still want, even if it's an off-meta deck. And the examples are, if we look at this card right here, if you're playing this particular deck, then this is a must. This one is another must. This is another must. And the list goes on and on and on. And I can continue pointing out cards. Or if you're playing an off-meta deck like this deck, or like the fish deck, or this one right here, at one point was a very sought-after card because it was one of the top-tier decks in the format. And then now, if we look back at the cards that are currently being played within the meta, you see cards like this, or cards like this, or this one right here. And yet again, another one right here. And then we continue. This one's another playable card that people seek after. This one right here, just like this one. And this one. I mean, we could point out numerous cards within this set that are currently being played in the top end decks. And so people are still chasing after those cards that are within CC-01 because they offer real long-term value for the player. Yay! So one thing that I wanted to point out and note is there is a uniqueness with CC-02 is that they added some English translation variants to the SECs. And I believe that they did this because they wanted to offer some variety with the SECs instead of just having the traditional Thai version of the card, but also allow for more players that may not know Thai to be able to read the translation of the card. So while this is a Thai game, they do have English variant cards within the set. If we look at the newest release with CC-02, we don't necessarily see that same level of value, because if we go through this list, and I'll show you some examples. There's very few cards that are being introduced into those top end decks. One example could be this card right here. This is a card that is currently being played and spread out. It's not in every top end deck, but it is being played. And I see it hit and miss depending on the event. Another one could be this one. This is another card that people seem to be adding to their deck. Now this is another one that people are playing and added to their deck. Now mind you, this is a reprint. So this isn't a new card, but this is an older card. So people may have already had this card. This one right here is another one. But if we look at the two sets in comparison to the value and how it's shaking up the meta, there isn't a lot of either new cards or old cards that alone can make you a competitive deck. So if you look at CC-01, it seemed to add a lot more value than CC-02 because of the number of playable cards that are existing within the deck. Now, this may not be true when we look at this next year. Next January, we may be saying CC-02 added so much value because we don't know cards that are going to be released in the future.
Yay!
But if we're strictly looking at it from a perspective of now, it seemed like CC-01 offered more meta-defining cards, where CC-02 seems to offer more value to the newer player and allows for them to get access to some of the older cards. But let's not just drill in on the differences between 1 and 2, and maybe how CC-02 currently doesn't offer as much value as CC-01 did. I really want to give credit with CC-02 because CC-02 does bring some value. It offers new alternate arts. As we can see here, we see the difference between these two. It also introduced some new archetypes / gameplay styles that it seems like the direction of the designers of the game are going. Like with this card, it allows for there to be more control, or we could talk about this one, the Overdose deck. Between those two cards, you can clearly see that there is a shift towards allowing players to have a little bit more control style decks. With this particular anniversary set, they do change the rarity of certain cards. So if you look right here, some of the cards are marked as UR and SR, even though in other sets they may not be like that. If you look right here, you can see that this is a rare in a different set, while in this particular set it is a UR. So they change the rarity, and I believe that they do that because they want to indicate the foiling. In CC-02, every card is foiled. The change in rarity just marks that it's a foiled card. So if you ask me from the perspective of someone that is fairly new to the game, if I would buy CC-02, I would say yes, because I need the older cards while also getting the new cards. What I appreciate is that the developers did print enough of the product. There's not really a gatekeeper like there is in older sets, where some of the cards you just cannot get them. Even if you wanted to buy them and you're willing to spend the money to get them, it's just not happening because you have to find a seller, and then you have to hope that you're the first one to get access to that card. So it's very hard. While I think that CC-02 did bring some value to the collector by alternate arts, and not only that, but it did allow for new players to have more accessible to the higher played cards. One thing I think that that's lacking is currently CC-02 does not really shift or change the meta. It's pretty much the same meta with a few added new utensils. And I can show you that by if we look at the top tier decks, we're going to see a common theme. So here's one of the top decks right now being played. If we look, this card right here is going to be from CC-01. And then right here, CC-01. That's two examples of cards that were printed back in CC-01. But this is a top deck, and if we're looking at cards that are specifically available in CC-02, looking at this deck, here's one. You can get one. You could make the argument that maybe you could adjust the way that this is built, but I don't see any cards from CC-02. Now, the only one does rotate out between this one. So a lot of people have taken this card right here and substitute it into this deck because they believe it adds more value, but it's not a must for this deck to operate. It just maybe offers more value as giving your avatars more power and drawability. Now, if we go to the second deck, you could possibly say that this card right here, because that's from CC-02, I'm not really seeing a lot of other cards from CC-02. Then if we go to the next one, this right here is currently the best deck in format. And if we look, We have one card from CC-02, but there's not really anything else in this deck list I'm seeing that is different from previous. Now, there is some variants that are being played where you can incorporate some of the other cards, but this is kind of the baseline. So then if we go to kind of newest top tier deck in the format, outside of this card right here, we're not really seeing much difference in the way that the deck is being built with CC-02. So then if we go to maybe a different build, the thing about Battle of Talingchan is that there is so many ways to build a deck, and depending on what kind of style player you are, you can kind of build it out however you like. And yet again, I mean, we have this card, and you could say this card, that's from CC-02. But outside of those two cards, this is an alternate art that's available in previous sets. But outside of that alternate art here, but I'm not really seeing many new cards from CC-02.
Yay!
Okay, let's bring up this deck. This is another top-end deck that a lot of people are playing. And this has more reprints, so we're trying to maximize the reprints if you're a new player, or if you're just somebody that doesn't want to buy CC-02 because the price is so high. If you're not wanting to buy the box and you just want to buy singles, well, then which one should you be aiming for, and how much more of a deck are you going to have to purchase? Well, you have this card, which was from CC-02. You have this card from CC-02. You have this card you can get in CC-02. I mean, this card is another one. And the only one. We can pull up another one. If you look at this one, yet again, you can get this card, this card, this card, maybe a couple other ones. But my point is CC-02, while it did make some of the cards more accessible, it really felt like they missed an opportunity to shift up the meta and also really add cards that truly added value to the new player. I mean, I don't know how else to say it besides, it just seems like this was a miss, that they knew that there was an accessibility problem with getting older cards. And their response was to add new cards that are going into these competitive decks without reprinting some of the really sought after staples that are from older sets. So it just seems like this was a miss.
Yay!
Maybe in a year we look back and we say, man, CC-02 offered so much value that we just don't realize because we don't know the cards that are going to be in future sets. But if you're looking at it from a perspective right now, it just doesn't seem like the juice is worth the squeeze. If I was a new player and I was getting into the game, I don't know if I would want to be purchasing this product outright, because if we look at this, if you could pre-order it for 1,200 baht per box, and in these boxes, you get 3 hits. And I said this in my last video when BT-08, is that one thing I do appreciate is the company tries to aim for you to have value within their booster boxes. So with getting 3 alternate arts, depending on which ones you get, obviously there's different prices depending on which one you open, you are able to justify the 1,200 baht spending point. Problem is this right here, is that if you did not purchase these as a pre-order because maybe you were new to the game, or at the time you weren't sure if this product was going to be worth it, whatever the case may be. Now the resale market of these boxes are selling for $29.90 per box over the 1,200. Now you can shop around and get something like this, $23.99. So you're paying double for the same exact product for the people that pre-ordered, or they bought it on release. And let's just say you don't want to pay the 2,400, then you're left with buying staples like this, which is 400 baht for one card. And you need 4 of. So that's 1,600 baht to get this card in a deck that is not currently a top tier deck. That is kind of dwelling on the negative aspects of CC-02. One of the things that I did want to point out is if we go back and look at CC-02, there is some cards that may not be viable right now, but if you have play sets maybe in the future, they could be potentially meta changing. So cards like this card could be a very highly, and it's not that expensive right now. So there are cards that you can purchase, maybe not for the best decks and format right now. In the future, they may be more competitive and add value. So my final thoughts is that if you're a collector that loves new artwork, then CC-02 is worth it. But if you're a competitive player that may not have some of those top end decks, then you're not going to be able to find the same exact value that you would as a collector. The problem is that you're just going to need too many cards from older sets that are not readily available for you right now. So ultimately, CC-02 is a set with some strengths and some misses. We'll see in a year if it gains the same reputation as CC-01, but for now, let's go ahead and recap the hits that we got out of this box opening. So this right here is all the alternate arts, and as you see when we recap this and throughout the box opening, you'll see that we necessarily didn't get anything that's really building us to outside of this card, Flip the Table. That's a nice reprint, nice alternate art. Maybe in the future this card could be used as an only one. This one right here is going in the fish deck, which isn't that good right now. We got the Bubble Bank, which is cool to get in English. We got the Rich Man, which, as I already said, there's a lot of top end decks that are playing this card, so pretty good card. And then we got this one, which was the biggest hit of the box. Out of all three boxes, this was definitely the biggest hit. So it's nice just to be able to get one of those top end cards. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for joining me into this deep dive, and I'll catch you on the next one.